I don't hate Bonnie, and this isn't about your dad or Bonnie or me. This is about you, Abigail, and your future.
And what I'm saying is the metric of success is not always monetary or career related. It could be a much more holistic equation.
Hi, Aaron. Congratulations on winning this month's 11-second club. My name is Ray Chase, and I'm going to be giving you a critique on your winning submission this week. A little bit about me, just in a nutshell. I've been a character animator for almost 20 years. I started at DNA working on the Jimmy Neutron movie. Then I moved to Real Effects. I was there for 12 years, worked on a variety of projects there. The movies Freebirds, Book of Life, did some Looney Tunes shorts, the Despicable Me ride, if you've been to Universal Studios. As well as commercials, Lego commercials, and Kung Fu Panda commercials, all kinds of stuff there. More recently, though, I've been kind of moving into games. I did some freelance on Borderlands 3 and Spyro Reignited, which both were a lot of fun. Currently, I'm a senior animator at id Software, working on Doom Eternal, which will be out November 22nd, and that has been a lot of fun. I've also been a mentor here at Animation Mentor for the last 12 years. I've done a lot of class 4, class 3, most of the core classes. I've kind of bounced around a bit, but yeah, enough about me. Let's take a look at your animation and chat a little bit about it. So I'll just play through it, and then we can talk about it.
I don't hate Bonnie, and this isn't about your dad or Bonnie or me. This is about you, Abigail, and your future.
And what I'm saying is the metric of success is not always monetary or career related. It could be a much more holistic equation.
I don't hate.
Cool. So you don't see a lot of the Pythagorean theorem in animation, so I think it's awesome that you're like bringing that back, or starting it, because yes, you don't see a lot of that. But super fun. I think it's really super fun and appealing what you've done here. And also, one of the things I kind of liked is taking the line, and doing something a little bit unexpected, with your ending, which is kind of nice, and that kind of helps with the entertainment of the piece overall, because you don't expect that kind of an ending, and then you kind of have that little surprise there, which is again kind of a nice fun surprise. So yeah, so I love the mouth shapes that you have on Big A. They're all like super clean. Like this right here is just super nice, and reads very well. And I also really like the solve that you did when Big A walks over to Little A. Let me just get on down here. So this is cool, and overall, you went very simplistic with the design of the characters. Everything is very simple, simple shapes and so forth, which I think is great. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated to be entertaining and fun, and that's exactly what you've achieved here. I mean, you went sort of simple, and it works. It totally works. I think sometimes students or just animators in general feel like they have to have some kind of really cool, complicated rig or this or that or the other, and environments and trees and all this kind of stuff, and you really don't. I mean, what's entertaining is entertaining. You don't have to have something super complex to be entertaining. So the solve that you have right here, I think, is really great, with Big A, kind of bending down to kind of sit next to Little A. That's just really cute. And again, I mean, Big A doesn't have legs, just little lines, and kind of hinting towards a knee here, which is neat. I like that. That's kind of fun. And then sitting down, legs kind of drooping over the sides. That's it's great. It's really fun, really cute. And then the bounciness of Little A as she comes down here. So yeah, so really cute. And again, I mean, I really like the mouth shapes, to say that again, as well as the expressions that you're getting with Big A up here. The one thing I would say, just from a design standpoint, and we talk about this a lot, like in 3D animation, is thinking about the eye mask as a whole. I notice on some of the eye shapes, or some of the expressions, I should say, you're going with the bigger eye closer to camera and the smaller eye further away from camera. So an expression like this, right? So And future assignments, if you're going to continue with 2D or if you're going to do some playing around with 3D, if you think of the eye mask as the brow working with the eye, you may end up with something that's a little bit more where the eye that's closer to camera might be like this, and this further eye might be like that, and then it kind of feels like the brow and the eye are sort of working together. And a more extreme sort of version, like if you had like sort of like an angry sort of eye like that, and then you were doing this kind of a thing. It's just to make it feel like the brow and the eyeball and the lid, like all of this is sort of working together. When you get into shapes where like the brow is up, but then the eyeball is low, it kind of gives the feeling that, well, the lid's half closed because the eye is more closed, but the brow is up. How is that working? With something simple like this, where you don't have muscles and face controls and all this kind of stuff, it works fine. You can get away with that. Totally cool. But I wanted to mention it in case, you are going to experiment with doing some, maybe some more complicated rigs, or if you're going to go full on with a face or something like that in 2D later on, it would be something to just sort of keep in the back of your mind. And a lot of the things that I'm going to probably say today, Aaron, it's probably going to be a little bit subjective and not necessarily, you should have done it this way. I mean, it's definitely going to apply depending on the style of animation that you're doing, right? And also you as an artist, what your intent is. And intent, I think, is a huge part of what we do in animation. And what I mean by that, again, would be sort of like the hands that you have with these little characters. It kind of feels like they're like little tassel hands, right? They're not that expressive, like you're not really getting like hand poses and hand shapes and things like that. But that could have totally been what you wanted. That was your intent. That was what you were going for. You didn't want to have, hand this and hand gestures and things like that. You just kind of wanted to have like this light, sort of airy, tassel-y sort of hand. And if that was the intent, it works perfectly fine. Another idea, though, for the hands, like if you wanted to go more simple with the hands, but you didn't want to draw all the fingers and do all the sorts of, posing with the digits and stuff, is almost thinking of the hands as like little mitts. Little mittens, because then you can do stuff. I mean, this isn't that expressive what I'm drawing here, but you can do something that's a little bit more, like this. And that's your hand, like if you were drawing it, right? You don't have to do, all the fingers and all the digits. You could just go with just the general shape that the hand is making to kind of give the intent, or to try to give the gesture, the emotion that's in the hand, without drawing all the fingers. If you wanted to go more simplistic, but also getting a little bit more definition per se in what the hand is doing. But again, it's a stylistic choice. And, again, I think everything that you did here stylistically, all the choices that you made, I think are working really, really well for the nice, simple style that you're going with in the animation. These are just more sort of suggestions of what you might consider for future assignments and so forth. So, okay, so with Big A, another thing I was going to mention with Big A is, what does she say here?
This isn't about your...
This isn't about your dad. MBP shapes, whenever the mouth is closed, what I like to do is try to get a compression in the mouth. And let me see if I can find the spot. Here we go. When she's saying, this is not about you, or let me just, not about your dad. I forget the line. I'm not as well versed as I'm sure you are. But what you could do, because it looks like you're doing this on twos, which is totally cool. When you have these two frames of compression, right, this held mouth shape, which sometimes is really nice, is on that second frame. Is this the first? This is the first frame. On the second frame, just push the mouth a little bit higher, almost like the mouth is like compressing up. If you think about, I sometimes will mention Yoda here because it's a little easier to, if you think about Yoda, and not like, new Yoda, we're talking classic Yoda, Empire Strikes Back Yoda, when the mouth would compress and he'd be like, and he'd do something like that, right? You could see the mouth kind of like rise up, and then like he'd release. It's getting that kind of a feeling, and just getting, which I drew here looks like a mustache, but if that was actually a compressed closed mouth, then on those M shapes or B shapes and whatnot, you'll see the mouth kind of compress a little bit and then release, and it makes the MB P sound a little bit stronger. If on the second frame of the closed, there's a little bit more compression and then the release. Later on, she's talking a little bit fast, and it feels like you might be missing that closed shape. If you can, try to work it in there as best you can. Sometimes you have to drop consonants and so forth.
About your dad or Bonnie or me. This is about you.
On Bonnie.
You, Abigail.
Oh, Abigail, that's on. Why did I say Bonnie? I got Toy Story on my brain.
You, Abigail.
Abigail. It feels like you're not getting the closed mouth in here, like you might be kind of dropping that out. And since it's not, colored in and stuff like that, it doesn't. It's not abundantly obvious that you're missing the close, because maybe this shape right here kind of stands in for that. Those are some shapes, kind of like with ooh shapes. When you do have to drop, certain mouth shapes out, certain phonemes have to get dropped. A lot of times, the closed mouths and like oohs or ahs, those will be very obvious if they're missing. Lots of times you can kind of get rid of like C's and G's and things like that. When the mouth's a little bit more closed, it won't be quite as missed. But obvious closed mouth shapes or open mouth shapes, try to work those in as much as you can. I think that's about all I had for Big B or Big A. What is wrong with me? Now I got B's and Bonnies on my brain. I must just start calling them Big B and Little B. It'll be confusing for you, but it'll make sense to me.
Don't hate Bonnie, and this isn't about your dad or Bonnie or me. This is about you, Abigail, and your future.
And what?
Oh, I know. The one other thing I was going to mention on Big A, not B, is when Big A puts her hand down here on Abigail. It's a little, and I'm not sure if if your intent is sort of like, okay, well she's kind of being kind of tender and kind of putting her hand, kind of like, hey, little Abigail. It's a little bit, just visually, it feels a little bit cluttered because the hand is getting dangerously close to her eye right here. So maybe an option would have been to maybe just drop the hand like all the way down. So maybe the hand is just a little bit more, maybe like down here. Since they're kind of see-through, it's kind of hard to have the hand kind of go behind, like on the back or anything, but just maybe trying to get it out of the way. So it's just a little bit, not competing so much with the eye. Moving to little a, one thing that I really like I said earlier, is I like that you have the brows on Big A. I feel like the brows are working really cool. I kind of wish little a had some brows just to kind of help with selling some of the selling some of the emotions. This is when little a gets really pissed. But it's just amazing, right? How like you just throw those in there and then suddenly you go from that to, oh my gosh, now she's like really angry. It kind of adds a lot. Again, when you're going more simplistic sort of with the style and so forth, the brows can kind of help reinforce, the emotions. So, yeah, so maybe throwing in some brows on little a might have been fun. These little bouncy things that she does as she goes down is feeling pretty cute. I feel like on some of these, maybe you could have tried to push maybe the squash and stretch a little bit more. And what I mean by that is that a little bit more taking this shape like on these stretches and getting her a little bit more sort of like that. What you have here feels pretty good, but it kind of feels like she maintains a lot of her sort of elliptical shape, like through here and like through here. So it kind of feels a little bit like, I don't know, like a bag of sand kind of bouncing down the steps, without having a little bit of that squash and stretch happening in there. And it feels like you're hinting towards it, maybe just pushing it a little bit more. Just getting her a little bit more. I'm drawing like crazy. I'm sorry. My tablet's a little too sensitive this morning. Just volumetrically, going ahead and stretching her out, getting a little bit more of that bouncing ball sort of feeling there, changing it, and obviously only changing it, for like that one frame on the stretches. The compressions that you have here are working fine, but maybe even like right here, maybe just going a little bit more like this, just trying to push it a little bit. And then, you might do it and you might be like, you know what, I don't really like how this looks. This looks a little bad. And, it's fine to like, take it back. Even like here too. Maybe just stretching it just a little bit, because you got this really nice shape kind of going on with her head and the arms and whatnot. Just trying to carry that through to the body as well. I was noticing on some of these drawings that you have, it kind of feels like her eyes are solid, and then they're not solid. And I'm not sure. Maybe your intent was to have a twinkle in her eye as she was jumping down to the bottom. And if that was your intent, because intent's very important, then that's totally fine. But when you play it at speed, if I go back here and if I play it, if we just kind of watch her eyeballs,
The metric of success is not always monetary or career related. It can be a much more holistic.
it kind of feels like they're
I
flashing
don't hate Bonnie. And
more
this
so
isn't about
than
your-
like blinks or anything like that. So maybe fill those bad boys in. Here at the end, when she gets into this last pose, it feels like you have this really nice, sort of bend in the arm as she goes out and puts her hand there. Since her very last pose, this is kind of where she's at. It would be nice to have just a little bit of a bend in there, just so that if you think about this line of action right going through here, if it's sort of continued up into the arm, and it can be kind of a subtle bend. It doesn't have to be as big as what you have in here. Keep that as sort of your anticipation bend in the arm, but then when the hand does make contact, maybe maintain a little tiny bit of a bend in there, just so it doesn't feel like it gets too terribly straight. Just so that the very last image we see, you're kind of keeping that nice appeal in her design and in her pose. Lip sync, again, I think you did a great job with those shapes. Feels very similar to what you did with Big A, and that's all working cool. I wrote a couple things down. I want to make sure that I hit everything, and I believe I did. Yeah. So again, Aaron, great job on this. I think this is like super fun. 2D animation, obviously a little bit more work involved with all the drawing and timing things out. Can't move things around quite as easily as we can in 3D. So extra kudos to you. Oh, one other thing I should mention too. I almost forgot to mention this. Line of action on Big A. I really like this kind of stuff that you're getting with these little weight shifts that she's doing. Kind of starting this way and then shifting it that way. Keeps it very interesting, kind of working within the pose, not having to move her around or like, squash and stretch her around, just kind of changing the line of action with these subtle little weight shifts. It really helps to kind of keep it alive, which is super nice. So again, great job on this, Aaron. I really like it. I think you did a really nice job with it. Very creative idea and a very creative solve for the line for sure. Yeah, great stuff. Best of luck to you with all your future animating, and have a good one, and congrats again.